back, way back to Africa. So, as a youngster, you become inquisitive. You want to know, why is this? Why is that? And you're in the army fighting for the freedom to maintain a freedom in which you are denied. But yet, you're so patriotic that you feel as though you're obligated to do this. And tell me that's the same thing with religion, that you're obligated. Well, I went on to war. I was in 4 combat missions. I have a couple of medals. Not to worry about. The soldier's medal, I guess, is the best one. And in the service, while overseas, we were rerouted again from Indonesia back to a small island called Tonga Tapu to prepare for the invasion of Guadalcanal. So we started at Tonga Tapu to Guadalcanal and then came all the way up through the Solomons, Fijis, and New Guinea, and Biak, and then we were headed from Biak to the Philippines for D+2. And when we were in the harbor at the Philippines, I got my orders to report to a new outfit so that it could be rotated back home. I had more than the total number of points that we needed to be rotated. It was Battalion Sergeant Major, and was transferred to another ship, off of the ship that with all my buddies and all, and came back down the same route, with the exception to Guadalcanal and Tonga Tapu. And then we boarded the British ship in Aquitania, big passenger ship converted to a troop ship. And we came back to Hawaii. Now, Hawaii was nothing at all like Tonga Tapu. The natives of Tonga Tapu were just as friendly as could be, and would do anything for you. Even wash and iron your clothes better than the laundry could do. And they used a coconut-fired iron. And we got to Hawaii, so they were looking for Sergeant Lord D. Higginbottom. I don't know how he got that name. I wouldn't answer the pipe down. So finally I said, well, maybe I'll get a chance to go on land in Hawaii. See Pearl Harbor and all that stuff we've been fighting for. So they said, the skipper said, we've been looking for you. We've had you marked AWOL. I said, well, how could it go AWOL? 30 days from the time we left New Guinea, Prince Haven, New Guinea, to Hawaii. I said, how can I go AWOL? I can't walk the water. And so he said, no, you're not. I said, but why didn't you answer? I said, answer what? To somebody else's name? I said, my name's Lord D. Nickens, not Lord D. Higginbottom. He said, well, they made a mistake. So I was in charge of a crew to pick up rations to last us the 11 days from Hawaii back to the United States. So when we were all ready, I had my platoon ready, and they had 4 truckloads of MPs, I don't know how many SPs, and we were jammed in the middle of it with this one little truck. And then another empty truck behind us to pick up the rations. I said, what's going on here? Said, well, we don't, you're quarantined, we don't want you to check with the other people until you've been checked out. I said, okay, that was all right. So we came back to got our rations, came back to ship, got on, the ships pulled out the next day. We pulled into San Francisco Bay, went over to Angels Island, and we thought we were treating the Japs bad enough overseas. We got back, and pardon the name Japs, if there are any one of the Japanese accent here, don't take it to heart. We got back to, we went to Angels Island. They had Japanese in these wire cages and threw raw sharks over there for them to eat. I was ready to leave there then when I saw that. We came back by train all the way across the country. Everything was well. Coming to Texas, California, Texas, Arizona, got to Louisiana, got to Mississippi. Got to Peleachi, Mississippi, and one of the soldiers got off to get, they really weren't supposed to, but there was a fellow selling hot dogs, and he jumped off and got a hot dog. And they wanted to lock him up, getting a hot dog. Well, I raised Sam head, and they did let him get back on. They said didn't want none of us getting off in the southern states, and by golly, got back to Fort Meade. They cut my orders on the same order blank with the young white lad from Martinsburg, West Virginia. Both of us were to report to the Second Army at Columbia, South Carolina on the day after the bombing of Japan, the atomic bomb. That was the 2nd of August. And we went back to the terminal. I got to Washington, D.C., riding a bus back. And an MP walked up and said, "Sergeant, where's your necktie?" I said, "I don't have one. I haven't had a necktie since 1940. He wanted to take me in. Waiting at the bus terminal for the bus to take us back down south." So the lieutenant came around and he said, "Sergeant, how long have you been back in the States?" I said, 30 days. He told the MP to go ahead and forget it. I said, "This man, they don't wear no neckties over the tropics." He didn't know where a necktie was. And so we came back, we got as far as Richmond that evening. I wanted to get a bus stop so we could get something to eat, or so they could get something to eat all the way back. They went in the restaurant. They got what they wanted, and there was a white couple from Orlando, Florida. And I'll never forget those two people. Young couple they were. And they came back because they couldn't buy and go in the restaurants and knew nothing about Richmond or how far I had to go to get to a colored restaurant, as we call it. And they said, "Sergeant, you want something to eat? We'll get you something to eat." So they went in to this Greek restaurant where they ate and got me a fish sandwich and a cup of coffee. That was the last meal until the next morning. At 7 o'clock, we pulled into Orangeburg, South Carolina. Now, the month before that, they had blinded a black soldier who had just come back from Europe, fighting with an infantry outfit that went in on D-Day invasion of Europe to knock down the Nazi regime. He was blinded. So this couple said to me, said, Sergeant, you better not get off here. Said, we'll bring you back what you want. Said, what do you want? I said, well, bring me a ham and egg sandwich and a cup of coffee. I said, fine. The lady went in, they ate, came out, she had my sandwich and a cup of coffee, and she got to the door of the bus, and the bus driver said to her, what are you going to do with that? I said, if you're going to serve that nigger, you ain't going to get it. You're not getting on this bus with it. Knock it out of her hand and tread on it. I was fuming. So we went on farther south, got to Columbia. I guess it was 20 minutes to 10 that morning when we got into Columbia. And immediately after the recon had picked us up, they took us to their headquarters, 2nd Army headquarters. And there was a sergeant major sitting to the left of the door, a lieutenant sitting next to him, and then the major was in a little room off from that. So there were 3 benches in there, and I sat on the bench. They immediately called the white lad, sent him out to his outfit. And I sat there at 6:30 that evening, nothing to eat, nothing to drink. I said to the sergeant major, Sergeant, when am I going to be transferred to? I said to my outfit. I said, I've been here all day long. He said, I know, Sergeant. I said, just say something to the lieutenant. I said to the lieutenant, Sir, I saluted him, Sir, when am I going to be sent to my outfit? He looked at me and says, we don't have no place for niggers in the 2nd Army. And I was so angry, all this had built up into me that I hit him in his mouth. And there's a toothprint right down the knuckles today. Showed for it. I'm going to court-martial you, knocked him over on the floor. I'm going to court-martial you. The major walked out and said, if anyone's going to be court-martialed, it's going to be you. So he put me on a C-47 and flew me back to Fort Bragg. Up to Fort Bragg that evening. That's where I got all my basic training and everything. That's where I joined the 34th Brigade there. And we went in, I got off of the plane, the recon picked me up to the men, and the sergeant driving the recon said, Sergeant said, you can get your mess kit out of your duffel bag there and go and get in line and you get something to eat. I said, okay. There's German prisoners lined up 2 rows of them from here to the main gate. I know, if not farther. They were serving. And they had fried chicken. And that was one of my favorites. That particular time. And it smelled good. And I could almost taste it. By the time I got up there, an hour later, staff sergeant, the mess sergeant, he pushed me out of the line. And I said, what's this for? He said, we don't serve niggers in here. I said, you're serving German prisoners. Why can't you serve me? I just come from overseas, man. What's wrong with you? We still don't serve niggers. I said, well, if you consider me a nigger, I guess I had to go to the IG. Went across the circle to the IG's quarters, talked to him. He came over, he ripped the stripes off the side, and I got my fried chicken. But the next day, the colonel in the outfit that it was sent to said to me, Sergeant, I want you to prepare to discharge for he called the lad's name, I forget his name now. said, but his boss wants that nigger to come back and pick his cotton. And I looked at him and said, sir, I've never seen, since I've been in the Army, and I've been in here 5 years, I have never seen nigger in the soldier's guide. It says colored troops. Wouldn't it anxious you to tell me what's in the manual? I said, well, sir, you have it your way, you want to. Well, I'm going to send you to Korea. I said, well, we'll see. So I went back to the IG's quarters and asked for a discharge. But I couldn't take that no more down there because either I'd be killed or kill somebody else. So I got, 11 days later, my discharge came through. I was no longer under that colonel. It's in a pool, reserve pool they call it. So I was discharged. And I came on back home, and I said, it's time for me to do something here. Because I had been a member of the NAACP from the initial opening of the first chapter in Frederick County in 1936. And I decided then it was time for me to start working with the NAACP. And I started working with the NAACP and got to meet quite a few people of standing. Thurgood Marshall was one of those. And that particular time, just before that, prior to that, I had met Thurgood because we were working on the Scottsboro case. And those lads that were accused of raping a white girl on the boxcar, that's tramps, that's what they call us. Because we had all been in the jungle from the Depression. Didn't want to be burdens on the family. So we took to the road. And you would hitch a ride any way that you could. Train, truck, horse and buggy, or whatever. And these lads in Alabama had gotten on this boxcar, these two white girls. And they made the girls say that they had ravaged them. And the one girl, she broke down, and her conscience whipped her, and she recounted her story. And we began a collection at that particular time of 25 cents per person. It was selling little buttons. And that little button said, I was there. And we sold it for 25 cents. We raised enough money to get those fellows who had been sentenced to die from the death chamber and released. I think the last one of those fellows died by 1964, 66, something like that. Then the school teachers' salary came up. Equalization of the teacher's salary. White teachers were getting twice as much as in salary as the black teachers. And I don't want you to get me wrong. I don't want you to think that I'm bitter because I'm a changed man. But I'm just relating to you how history itself progresses from generation to generation, and how soon we forget and think that we're living in this world alone and on our own, when we all have to live within a synergistic atmosphere. We have to depend on one another. We have to be friends with one another. We have to trust one And to move on with the story, we worked with the Baltimore chapter. We had no state chapter then. And there was only 9 chapters within the state at that particular time. That is a chapter for each county, plus 3 for Baltimore County. And the teachers' salaries were equalized. Mr. Brunner, John W. Brunner, started in the school system at $20 a month. As supervisor of all black schools in Frederick County, he only made $40 a month. The average first grade teacher, white, was making $42 a month, $42.50 to be exact. Mr. Brunner was a very congenial and friendly man, yet he could be very staunch. And so there was no black high school in Frederick County. So Mr. Brunner decided that he was going to ask the school board to establish a black high school. If we wanted to go to black high school after we came out to 7th grade, we had to go out of state or go to Baltimore or to Washington or Virginia, where they had black high schools, or Harper's Ferry, Stowe College. And Stowe College was the most prevalent one at that particular time for blacks in Frederick County. So on 6th Street, Mr. Brunner, I thought I bought a picture of that building along. Maybe I didn't. Found it through the supervisor and the county commissioners at that particular time, a little one-room church on 6th Street. And that little one-room church was opened as the Black Frederick High School. I did burn them out. And it was opened in 1922. The 8th grade of that school was taught in the rear of the Bench Street School. There was 3 rooms in the Bench Street main building. It had sliding doors where it could open, and we'd have General Assembly, and all could get together that way. There was a little building in the back for the then kindergarten and first graders, mostly first graders, because it had very little kindergarten at that particular